Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Adan, and I am with the Community Action Center, Whitman County. We are here to talk about the 2020 census and how it relates to our community. I'm here with Licett and Taylor, who are both with the United States Census Bureau. So I'm going to turn it over to Licett and Taylor and allow them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about the 2020 census and how it matters for our community.
Thank you so much. So as Elizabeth mentioned, my name is Licett Figueroa Garbe. I am a partnership specialist and I lead Eastern Washington, which encompasses Whitman County. The big thing that we want to make sure is that every resident in Whitman County knows the importance about the census and how it's going to affect them for the next 10 years. This year is our opportunity to make sure that we receive the appropriate funding and the representation that we need, like I said, for the next 10 years. And I'll pass it over to my coworker Taylor so she can give herself a brief introduction.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Taylor Hoang, and I am also a partnership specialist with the Census Bureau. My specific concentration of work is in King County, but I am also the LA Region's National Partnership Liaison. So I work a lot within the business community, small businesses, nonprofit and faith-based group across our region. And I'm here today to support Elizabeth and Licett in making sure that Whitman County, all the residents are fully outreached to and have a great understanding and response to the 2020 census. So thank you for having me.
Great, thank you. Okay, as we move on, so what we're really focusing on is we're going to give you guys a brief introduction, what the census is, just a quick 101, how you can go ahead and self-respond now as it is occurring as we speak, how you can track your community's progress, and then a little bit more, Taylor's going to go a little bit more on the funding aspects, as well as how it affects small businesses. So it is in the Constitution. That's one of the biggest reasons of why we do the census. So it is in Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution that mandates the U.S. Census Bureau and the federal government to provide an enumeration every 10 years of the population. So this directly affects our apportionment, our redistricting for congressional districts, state legislative districts, school districts, county commissioner district lines. It also affects how the distribution of federal funds flows back into our community. So it's over $675 billion each year that is distributed based on census data. Additionally, it's an inclusive event. It's a way that we can all participate in democracy, and it's a way for us to be civically engaged on what happens. Regarding funding and representation, so like I said, it affects the distribution of more than $675 billion in federal funds to states, counties, and our communities, just like Whitman County. So it's for the next 10 years. So some of the examples of programs that it affects is programs like Medicaid or SNAP and WIC. Transportation planning also is one of the main groups that is affected by federal funds. So the Department of Transportation, DOT, here in the state of Washington receives a lot of its federal funding based on census data. Same thing for student loans and Pell Grants, Section 8 housing, the school lunch programs, Head Starts, community development grants. There's so many federal programs that are directly affected based on census data. We have a quick fact sheet that shows over 50 or 60 different programs, federal spending programs that are affected based on census data. In addition, based on the population of a state, that is how you receive your representation in Congress and your voice in DC, not just in DC, but also here in the state of Washington in Olympia. So the results are used to reapportion the 435 seats in the House of Representatives, determining how many seats each state gets. So back in 2010, the state of Washington was able to gain 1 seat in Congress because the population grew. So 10 years later now, 2020, our population has also grown. So this is how we are able to reapportion all the seats. And, we want to ensure that the state of Washington doesn't lose out on seats by making sure that we are all counted. Taylor, do you want to go into a little bit about the role of the decennial census and the distribution of federal funds?
Sure, yes. So the George Washington Institute of Public Policy did an estimate, and there's about total financing, financial assistance programs obligations is about $16 billion. And they did an estimate on how all of these the funds are distributed over different programs. As you can see, Medicaid is about $7 billion over the course of each year. Federal student loans of $1.3 billion, highway planning and construction, supplemental nutrition assistant programs, and this $16 billion is just specific for our Washington state. And then underneath that, you see the community development block grant, which is $250 million a year. The community federal CDBG community development block grants are usually the most relevant, I would say, distributions of funds to our community. It goes directly into the community, especially small and development communities, to support programs such as economic development for small businesses, for seniors care, for food banks, and so forth. And currently, the federal funding dollars, I wanted to share with you are the federal funding dollars in your community, and how this affects not just the programs in your community, but the small business support and development in the community. So as we know, COVID-19 has hit all of our communities really hard, especially small businesses. Small businesses make up the fabric of who we are, of our community, of the general store that we may go to, the gas stations that we may stop over, or the restaurants and diners that we frequent on a regular basis. And currently, there are a limited number of small business recovery loan sources and financial sources for small business. For example, you may have all heard about the payroll protection program, the PPP loans that is available for small businesses to access to pay payroll for an 8-week period, or hopefully Congress will pass the bill to extend it to the 24-week period for small businesses to be able to pay their staff and employees. Then there's also the economic injury disaster loan, EIDL for short, from the Small Business Administrations, that are giving up to $150,000 in very 30-year long-term loans for small businesses. And then there's also the Small Business Bridge Loan. Now, all of these small business recovery financial support are being funneled through the Small Business Administration. But what happens after that is the question. What happens? How do we continue to support our small businesses after these loans have come and gone? And that poses the big question on small business recovery. And after the loans are administered, small businesses who are able to access it will have some resources. Small businesses that haven't been able to access the Small Business Administration financial support will be left out in the cold. So that's why it's so important for us to continue to respond to the our census self-response form, because we need to be counted in the community as we go into the next few years and look on about recovery for businesses, for our community. Those data is going to be essential for our federal funding dollars. And those federal funding dollars, like I mentioned, the CDBG is funded about $250,000, and that goes through the Department of Commerce. The economic development for technical assistance. This is where your chambers of commerce may receive federal funding. Your associations may receive federal funding to provide you with technical supports on how to restart your business, on how to access grants, how to provide, business development, such as writing a business loan or to write a business plan. These are all technical assistance that also gets received funding from the Department of Commerce. And then there's also business facilities and industry loan guarantees that are being funneled through the USDA. As you can see, it's $2.5 billion that then gets trickled down into our state, into our communities. But these business facility and industry loan guarantees are specific for farmers and to support them as they continue to deal with COVID-19 and in the years to come. Next slide, please. So I want to share, as our small business and our communities look to recover from COVID-19 and be able to get back to the new normal, whatever that may be. In addition to encouraging you to respond to the census in order for us to receive adequate counts of our population and receive federal funding, there are a number of census resources to support small business as you look to recover and as you look to plan ahead for what that means for your community and for your businesses. And so, for example, in response to the economic fallout of COVID-19, the census have put together the Small Business Pulse Survey. And I included here the website, but it's information that is available for small business data. The Small Business Pulse Survey measures the changes in business conditions on our nation's small businesses during the coronavirus. And the Business Pulse complements existing US Census data. And by providing high-frequency, detailed information on small business-specific initiatives such as the Paycheck Protection Program, and the results from the survey could provide useful information to policymakers, communities, as they seek to address some of the challenges faced by small businesses. And in addition, the information may help small businesses in making decisions and assist them in studying the impact and the recovery for their small businesses. So as you can see, the information provided through the Pulse data survey covers financial assistance, what is the current cash on hand, what is the transportation and warehousing look like, construction. It has a number of different industries in here that folks can look to gather information as they decide, should I continue to open my business? Should I plan ahead? Is my community going to be able to continue to support my business? So these are all information that you can find on the Small Business Pulse Survey of the U.S. On the census.gov website. Next slide. And this is a example of the type of data and information that you can go on there. When you will find when you go on there. For example, you can put in the weeks of information that you're looking for, overall impact. They have specific to counties, states, that you can also go on there to collect information as you look to determine what that means for your community and how to restart the economy or how to support small business recovery. So I highly encourage you, if you are a small business owner, community member, that if you can continue to support getting the message and outreach out to the community, to encourage everyone to self-respond, get their response in. These are all information and data that can help us as we move towards recovery phase of our economy. Thank you, and I'll pass it back on to Licett.
Thank you, Taylor. That was really helpful. And I think a lot of great, not just small businesses, but also the chambers and elected officials there in Whitman County are going to find this information really useful in a way to plan, like you said, for the next few years of recovery and what that looks like next. As we move forward through the presentation, I wanted to go ahead and make sure that we showed at least a sample of the invitation that was sent to households back in March. So this is just a quick preview of what you guys should have received in the mail. It does say, you know, dear residents, this is your invitation to respond. It should say to respond by April 1st, and it does have that URL. This is just an example. And it does have your census ID. So we just want to make sure that, you know what it looks like. It gives a brief introduction again, saying that we should include adults, children, babies, all living and staying at this address, why the 2020 census is important and how it affects, you know, billions of dollars for schools, roads, and other public services. It does touch upon emergency readiness needs, and as well as our congressional representatives.
Quick question on that, Licett.
Yeah.
It says respond by April 1st. Has that deadline changed, or is there an extended deadline due to the pandemic?
It is. So yeah, exactly. So before it was going to be from March 12th to July 31st. And because of COVID-19, we did revise the schedule. So now it's March 12th extended all the way to October 31st. So households and residents across the United States have until October 31st to respond to the census. And, you know, they can respond in 3 different ways. They can mail back their questionnaire that they should have received in the mail. They could call our toll-free phone number, and I have a slide on that as well, so it also shares that information, or they can go online. So on the slide that you are viewing right now, it says you can respond now at my2020census.gov. That is a direct link of where people can go and self-respond on our website. And then you can also call our toll-free phone number, which is the 1-844-330-2020 if you need help completing your census over the phone. So if people, you know, don't feel quite comfortable maybe doing it online, or maybe would feel more comfortable just talking to a live customer service representative, they do have that option as well. So you do have a couple of options available to you, whichever way you feel more comfortable. The important thing is to please self-respond. So in light of the COVID-19 outbreak, like we just mentioned, we adjusted our census operations. You can actually view our complete operation schedule that was adjusted on 2020census.gov under operational adjustments. So you can actually see our entire operational adjustments and all of our different operations, not just our self-response phase, but how we count, let's just say, you know, colleges and universities. And I know Whitman County has WSU. So, for example, a lot of people are very interested on how we count college students. And just want to touch on that really quickly. We're supposed to count them where they originally were supposed to be sleeping and living regardless of COVID-19. So a lot of university students went back home or moved back due to the pandemic, but we want to make sure that they were counted where they would have been living, which is usually in Pullman. So we want to make sure that people respond, and we do have a quick one-pager that goes a little bit more into counting college students. We also have FAQs, we have a video that we also designed, and we gave all this information out to the universities as well. So I know they've been working with us to also reach out to all of the college students, you know, through their emails or by mailing information or through social media. But we want to make sure that if they were living in Pullman, they be counted in Pullman, because that's where the resources are going to go back to. If they live on campus through university housing, we are currently working with university housing officials to make sure that they are counted. If they were living in an apartment, they would just respond where they would be living in that apartment in Pullman, for example. So this is a quick snippet just of the page online on the my2020census.gov. Just wanted to make sure I showed, how that looks like. We do have that quick respond now button. You can also, it shows, start the questionnaire. It shows the .gov, which means it's official. It's a federal government website. It also has that locked icon that shows that this site is secure and encrypted, because we want to make sure that your information is protected. So we want to make sure that everybody's on the correct site if they are going to go online. We also made sure to provide a lot of education and outreach materials that explain the census, what it is, and why it's important to respond. So we made it available in 13 with English, so 13 languages is available on our website. And then we have 59 non-English languages that we have video and print guides on how to complete the census as well. So with all of that information, it covers about 99% of the language needs in the entire United States, which is really amazing when you think about, how diverse and linguistically diverse our country is. So this is the information for responding by phone. It has the language line, the toll-free phone numbers directly. Like I said, for people who maybe would feel more comfortable responding, with a live customer service representative, it's 10 questions in total, 9 if you don't count your name. So you can do it fairly easy. You can call our main toll-free phone number. Like I said, the English is the one that's listed at 844-330-2020. And then all the other languages with their main language line are listed below as well. So want to make sure everybody has that information as well. We did add a callback option to respond to requests during high call volume. So during COVID, because of social distancing, that was one of the biggest things, was there was a high call volume, just because a lot of our call centers, we also had to scale down in size to making sure that we were compliant with social distancing and, how many people were in these call centers. So we do have a callback option available. So when that callback option is presented, all you do is you share your phone number and the time of day that you would like a call to be returned, and then an official census representative will call you back so you can go ahead and respond to the 2020 census. All the responses are confidential. We want to make sure we touch upon that. You are protected through Title 13. So for people who don't know a little bit more about Title 13 and the privacy of how the Census Bureau protects your data. So we are bound by law to protect your answers and keep them strictly confidential. So both Taylor and myself and every other employee take an oath to protect your personal information for life. We are bound by, like I mentioned, Title 13, which is a U.S. code, to keep your information confidential. This law allows your answers to be protected. We cannot release any identifiable information about you, your home, or your business, even to law enforcement agencies. So the law ensures that your private data is protected and that your answers cannot be used against you by any government agency or court. So by violating this Title 13, it is a federal crime. It is punishable by prison time and up to a fine of $250,000. So the answers that you provide to the Census Bureau are only used to produce statistics. You are kept anonymous. And like I mentioned, we are not allowed to release your public information or your responses in any way that could identify you or anyone else in your home. The information also cannot be legally subpoenaed or used against you in the court of law. So I think that's very important that people know that. And going back to the callback, if you think you missed a call from the Census Bureau, but you want to confirm that it's actually legitimate, I provided the phone number there in English and in Spanish that you can call back the local Census Bureau representative to make sure that that call that you received is actually a legitimate call.
Licett, a quick clarifying question on the confidentiality. I'm curious, how does this affect undocumented community members and how they should respond to the census?
Yeah, so like just specifically, just like you said, whether they're documented, undocumented, on a visa, on an H-2A visa, no matter what legal status or, you know, any kind of background they are, this is completely confidential. So we're not allowed to share any of our responses with anybody. That includes ICE, that includes the FBI, that includes any other federal agency, law enforcement agency. So your answers are completely private and confidential. This is what allows, Title 13 is what really allows us to be able to keep your information confidential and allows us to be able to use the answers just to produce statistics. So like I said, we erase all of the identifiable information about you, your home, and your business. And all we do is produce statistics about it. So it's completely anonymous.
That's great. Thank you for clarifying that.
Of course. And like I mentioned, if you have more questions, you can always go on the 2020census.gov and go under privacy and security, which goes a little bit more into detail. We also have outreach materials in multiple languages that talk about confidentiality and privacy and how the law truly protects you. I want to go into just really quick. This is a question I always get when I do presentations out in the community. People want to verify that the people that they are calling or people who are knocking on their doors are actually Census Bureau staff. So if someone does come knocking on your door, we're not going to start that until August. So right now, no one should be going around asking for your information yet. So hopefully, like I said, if you want to go ahead and look up, you can verify this information on our online website. But you can also really quickly, I think, which is the easiest option, you can call our Los Angeles Regional Census Center, which oversees the state of Washington, and you can reach them at that phone number and make sure you verify that the person who is maybe knocking on your door is actually a Census Bureau employee. Most of us who are Census Bureau employees will have a specific information, so you can recognize that, and we have that as well on our website of how you can actually what to look out for, what an enumerator looks like. We have a specific bag we carry. We have an ID, which looks like a common access card that has, you know, your badge information, your picture. It has the Census Bureau logo on it. It has an expiration date, things like that, things to look out for. We also usually work with local police departments or sheriff's departments, you know, local law enforcement there to let them know when our employees will be out in the community as well. So just going a little bit more in detail, want to make sure everybody knows, you know, what to look out for and to avoid frauds and scams. So the important thing, I think, overall is the Census Bureau is not going to send you unsolicited emails to request for your participation in the 2020 census. We will never ask you for your social security number, money, donations, anything on behalf of a political party, your bank or credit card numbers. So if someone is claiming to be from the Census Bureau and they contact you, whether that be by phone or by email, and they ask you for one of these things, it's definitely a scam, and you should not give your information to them. You should call our fraud protection line, which is at 800-923-8282, to speak to a local Census Bureau representative so we're aware. And if you think someone came to your door who does not work for the Census Bureau, we urge you to call your local police department so they are also aware. We want to make sure that none of our residents fall victims to any frauds or scams. Like I said, we never ask for any social security number, any money, donations, or anything regarding to any bank or credit card numbers. So I want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. As we go through, I think this is one of the fun things that the 2020 census has, is our census response rate map. So the 2020 census is the first census actually that has the online option to it. So with that online option also comes the census response rate map. So it's very live and interactive. It actually gets updated every day at 12 noon. So probably in the next 20 minutes, we'll get the new updates for yesterday's. So what this does, it just allows you to keep tabs on households in the community that have responded with, and it shows the self-response rates across the country. So as you pull up this information, it shows the map of the United States, and it shows the complete self-response rates, and that's both by online, mail, and phone. So right now, the national self-response rate is at 60.8%. Here in the state of Washington, it's 66%. And then when you compare back in 2010, the final response rate for Whitman County was 63.4%. Currently, as of yesterday, Whitman County is at 54.8. So we're not quite there yet as far as surpassing our 2010 rate. So you really want to make sure that everybody in Whitman County, is able to participate. You can kind of see the shades of blue on the map on the lower right. So, the deeper the shade of blue, the better that county is doing. So you can really track your county, your city, and your community's response rates. It's really interactive. It allows, for healthy competitions across, across counties, across the states. We released a toolkit to help community leaders plan for response rate challenges. So hoping that they would beat their 2010 response rate. So it's really live and interactive, which I think is something new. And it's a way that the community can really be engaged and also be able to track their progress. And that is all the information I have for you today. Do you have any questions for us?
This was awesome, Licett. This is some great information. I think this is very helpful for people to understand the importance of filling out the census. I do have some questions that just came from our community that we can go through pretty quickly. Some people are wondering what to do if they've lost or can't find their census ID and they do wish to self-report.
Yeah, so people can respond without their census ID. If let's just say you forgot so you did receive, in total, you should have received at least 5 mailings from the Census Bureau. So outside of just the questionnaire, you should have received postcards, letters, things like that. So say you forgot your letter, you don't know where it is, your husband or wife threw it away, the kids drew on it, whatever happened. If you do still have your paper, your census questionnaire, the actual paper questionnaire, you can just mail that back because that already has the information on there. Let's say you want to respond online, but you don't have it with you. You can go ahead and click, don't have my census ID. And it does walk you through that process as well. And if not, you can call our toll-free phone number. So you still have options in case you don't have that census ID on you.
That's great. And then what about for people who maybe someone else in their household has already responded? Should they go ahead and respond, or is this one per household?
It is 1 per household, but let's say that you're living with roommates, and let's say me and my roommate, and she didn't count me in. I touched base with her, and I said, you responded on behalf of our household, but she just said, oh, well, I just responded for myself. I would still encourage yourself to either call our toll-free phone number or go online and respond for yourself. We want to make sure that every person is counted. So if someone already responded, but they missed somebody, we want to make sure that that person who wasn't included gets counted as well.
That makes sense. And then after filling out, either sending in that paper form or going online and self-reporting, do households need to keep that paper for their records?
They don't have to. A lot of people are keeping that just as a confirmation. I myself am a little bit of a hoarder, so I keep every confirmation and receipt that I have. And I think that's just more for peace of mind. So I printed off mine and kept mine just in case that, something went wrong. That's just myself for peace of mind. But like I said, you don't have to. I think it's just a choice to people, up to people if they'd like to print it and save that.
Great, that makes sense. Another question is about harder to reach communities and how they should be counted. You did specifically address students, but I'm wondering what's the best way to reach maybe some homeless populations in rural areas to encourage them to self-report?
Yeah, definitely. So we actually have different operations, like I mentioned. So we do have our service-based enumeration, which counts our service-based enumeration and our transitory location. So it's a little bit of both, and then our group quarters. So we do work with a lot of the service organizations like food bank, shelters that do this, that work with people who are experiencing homelessness. So we are currently contacting them. That operation right now is just paused due to COVID, just while everything kind of starts to reopen. But once we resume that operation, we will be able to count people who are experiencing homelessness. We also do a 3-day count. But in addition to that, we do have a lot of materials, wide range of materials that are available online to be downloaded, or we can print them out. Usually myself, I can usually send out a lot of materials there in Whitman County. So let's say maybe a food bank wants a couple of flyers, we can make sure to do that as well.
That's great. I know that you did send some flyers and some resources to the Community Action Center, Whitman County. So if anyone in our community is looking for those types of resources, definitely call or stop by to make an appointment, and we're happy to help you there. Another question that is specific to COVID-19, our community is wondering if responding to the census is going to impact their ability to receive their government stimulus checks.
So that is actually a rumor. So I'm so glad you touched upon that. So that was a rumor that was going around, that this has nothing to do with your stimulus checks. So you responding to your census is completely different from the relief and everything else going around with COVID-19 and those stimulus checks.
Okay, that's really good to know. Thank you. And this is a question that maybe Taylor might be able to answer. If someone receives the paper census form to a business, how should they respond, and how does that affect their household's response?
So most likely we would not have sent it to the business unless they use that business as a residential. So let's say if you have a home business in your home, so then your business would be within the same address as your home. So if you are receiving it through there, and it is within your home, then yes, go ahead and respond back to that. But if it's to, let's say, a law firm that you may have used as your resident address, and you're getting it through there, and let's say your attorney calls you and said, oh, hey, I received a form for you, the census form for you, but it was sent here to our address, then I would suggest calling up our toll-free 800 number and let them know that this is not your residence, a place of permanent residence, and what is your correct address, and then give them your information. You can fill it out with them then, or have them send you a different form. But most likely, because we correlate a lot of information, data, as we look to send out forms to residents, and most of the time it is to a specific residence and not to a commercial building, for example. But if you are, like I said, using your home and your business as the home address, you may get it there specifically, but then that would, if in that case, then it is specific to you, to your residence, and you should fill that out.
Okay, great. That makes sense. And then this might be a question more for people who own multiple properties or are landlords. But what happens if a census form is sent to either a vacant home or to someone who lives in an accessory dwelling unit?
Yeah, so this is actually really common, specifically like you can think of counties maybe that are large cabin homes, like I have Ponderay County, for example, and a lot of those are, second residences. So you should definitely call the Census Bureau just so we can make sure that we don't send anybody there knocking on that door, to making sure that that person, that we get a response from that household. So you can either call our area census office, which is in charge of the 20 counties in Eastern Washington, and that's based out of Spokane, or you can go ahead and call our toll-free phone number. And then while you're responding and giving your regular address that you're living there most of the time. You can just say, I also have a second home. This is going to be vacant. Please make a note on your records. That way we can ensure that we don't send someone to that second household, and we don't deploy any other resources there.
Great. That's really helpful. I think those are all the questions that we have from the community members, but Licett or Taylor, if there's anything else that you guys would like to share, please feel free.
I think overall, at least for myself, I just want to make sure that, everybody understands the importance of the census. This is our chance, every 10 years is when we really get a chance to make a difference on how the next 10 years of our country is going to be shaped, whether that be for funding, representation, what community center gets opened, what new hospital is opened, what new roads are developed, things like that, how our communities are really going to be shaped. So just want to make sure that everybody knows that, this is a vested interest that affects all of us. It's completely how our communities, our hospitals, fire departments, schools, and so many other great resources receive our funding. So please make sure to respond online. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for me, similar to what Licett have said, it comes down to representation and funding for our state. As we know, COVID is wreaking havoc on all of our cities, county, and state budget. There's a number of budget gaps in multiple jurisdictions, and that is going to have a huge impact on our communities, on our police stations, on our education system, on our road systems, on our transportation, and on our communities, and how we're able to care for our communities and our businesses. And we're going to be seeing the effect of that for years to come. And the importance of why we need to respond to the census is so that we have correct numbers of residents counted, so that we get our fair share of federal funding, which will go a long way in supporting all of those programs that are going to be seeing huge budget cuts and due to COVID-19 and the loss of state, county, and city revenues. So there is a number of importance of why we need to answer, but I think as we're looking towards the future, representation in DC, as well as our budgets and federal funding dollars, is going to go a long way. And that's just, super important for our communities as, we recover from COVID. So I highly encourage everyone, if they haven't already, please self-respond to the census, outreach to your neighbors, outreach to your friends, your children, your customers, and give them a reminder if they haven't done so already. And thank you for having us today.
Thank you so much, Taylor and Licett. It is very, very important that we all respond to the census, and I appreciate you guys taking time to come today and share why. This is a very actionable, simple thing that every household can do, and they can do today. It just takes about 10 minutes. So I really look forward to seeing our self-reporting numbers increasing and seeing how our responses are making a real impact on the future of Washington, especially as we see all of these issues with COVID-19. So if there's any more questions, please feel free to reach out to Licett. She has her contact information on the screen. The CAC will also be posting some information on the website about census reporting and how you can get involved, in addition to other community resources if you're in need. And that website is cacwhitman.org. And then also watch our Facebook page for more updates. And I appreciate everyone watching today. Thank you so much, Licett and Taylor.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.
Okay, I'm trying to look.